Please welcome to the stage, Sharron Paul!
Hey y'all, how you feeling? Okay, hi. I'm gonna give you a little backstory before we get into my story. I'm an only child, and the thing is that meant as a kid, I got all the cool stuff and didn't have to share at all. That was like, real cool presents for Christmas, like a Barbie dream house, a pinball machine, board games that I couldn't play with until other kids came over. That was kind of the downside and all that, honestly. But I'm also a child of divorce. So what that meant was, twice the celebrations, twice the presents, twice the despair. That was a real good time. But to be fair, I absolutely adored my parents. They met in college. They attended Brooklyn College, which I ended up going to later on when I got there. And they love to spend the holidays together, just all of them, including the ones people haven't heard of, especially Black Solidarity Day, which is a real thing. You can look it up. It's the first Monday in November. The thing is, my parents are fun to me because I've got basically the same exact personality as my dad. He is super gregarious. He's happy to talk to any and everyone at any given time. And he can't go anywhere without bumping into someone he knows. And one of the most distinguishing qualities about him is that he is always late. Always. It is impressive, to be honest. He was the one responsible for taking me to elementary school every day as a kid. Now, I got phenomenal grades. And the only notes on my report card were just oh, she's fantastic, but she's been late every day, just every single day. And that's carried on into my adult life. Those are also the reports I get back at work. It's just you're doing fantastic, but you've been late 60 times this quarter. So that seems like a little bit of a problem, to be honest. His whole attitude is kind of just, we'll get there when we get there. The thing will be there when we arrive. And as a little girl, I was close to my mom. She's a cool lady. She had a background in early childhood education, so she was just good with kids, period. Just by default. And I am her spitting image. I look just like this woman. She's a tall, brown-eyed woman, full-figured, without necessarily being imposing. With the fullness of the figure fluctuating over the years. She's very relatable in my book. She's interesting. She's a little bit serious. She and I don't have similar personalities in any respect. I've been doing comedy for a number of years, and jokingly, I invited her to one of my shows, and she very seriously said to me, Sharron, you and I do not have the same sense of humor. She meant that. She absolutely 100% meant that. I'm gonna rat her out right now. She loves Tyler Perry movies and doesn't think Steve Martin is funny. And I'm just I don't know how you bore me. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. But we were close when I was little, but things became a little more fraught as I got older. But I think that's natural with a young girl and her mom. You hit puberty, and then you just kind of start to fight about nothing, just all the time, and then there's just the unnecessary passive aggressiveness, and then the icy silent treatments that can last for months at a time while you live in the same house. But that could have been just us. I'm not sure if that's common for everybody. Living in a house with just one other person and not talking for 9 months is a very interesting experiment. If you're looking to spice things up, I totally recommend it. Things get real interesting. But I know that dealing with me was probably a little bit of a challenge for each of them, because I think about my mom. She was here looking at someone who had her face, but had the personality of someone that she'd completely excommunicated from her life on purpose. But then my dad, who had this mini-me personality-wise, who looked like that lady who wanted nothing to do with him. So I'm just I'm sure I'm an adventure for the both of yous. It's a good time. When I was little, they both worked outside the home, so like childcare was split amongst our extended family, like their siblings, their parents, and that didn't always work out because people make plans, people have lives of their own. So what would happen is sometimes my dad would actually take me to work with him when I was a toddler. And luckily, like I was cute and I was quiet, so it worked out. He sold cable. He would actually like take me to other people's homes and sell them cable. Don't know how he managed to keep that job at all, because that sounds wildly against protocol. But again, this is the guy who does what he wants. We'll get there when we get there. There'll be a small child in tow. Don't worry about it. It's fun. But then at some other point, like he also worked nights, and so he'd come home sometime between 2 and 4 a.m. and I would get up and be like, oh, it's party time. Daddy's home. We're gonna watch TV. We're gonna play games. We're gonna have snacks. And that was totally the norm for me when I was like 3. And I think it's why I'm the night owl I am today. Honestly, it's taken its toll, and I never sleep. Sleeping's overrated. If you guys are into it, please tell me how that works. I'm not accustomed to it at all. But my parents ended up separating around the time I was 10, and that divorce was finalized when I was 14. But thankfully, like when my dad moved out of the house, he didn't move too far away. I grew up in Brownsville in Brooklyn, and he was basically just down the street in East New York, technically like in walking distance. So sometimes it was easy for us to make last-minute plans and just zip off from time to time. Though I realized on the weekends, like I would get physically ill if both of my parents made plans for me, and I didn't know what to do. So I was just like, oh, my stomach hurts. I'm just gonna be in this bed and not do anything with anyone. Like I manifested illness because I couldn't stand to make a decision about who to spend my time with. So that was a little bit difficult. When it came to the holidays, that's when a lot of thought went into things. Because generally, my mom and my aunt were responsible for hosting Thanksgiving and Christmas. They owned homes on the same block, 3 doors down from each other, 1 block away from where they grew up. My grandparents lived right down the street, so it was very, very convenient. And so every year for Thanksgiving and Christmas, they switched off. And there was this, like during my teen and tween years, what would happen is I would spend the first half of the holiday with my mom's family, and then my dad would just come by and pick me up, and we'd go off and spend the day with whatever friends he decided he was gonna spend time with that year. I genuinely hated having to hop around. I just wished it was convenient. I could stay in one place, see all the family I cared about in one shot, and call it a day. Let's have some turkey, let's open some presents, let's chill, everybody go home. That was all I wanted. But it was never quite that simple, especially because after the divorce, my dad wasn't allowed in the house, period. He'd come by to visit or pick me up, and he'd come to the door, and that was about it. He was like a vampire. He had to have an explicit invitation to enter the home. And sadly, I wasn't personally able to extend that invitation. In fact, there was one day that my dad came by for a visit, and I think he wanted me to type up a letter, because I've always served as his main personal assistant. Anything that he wanted done, it was my duty. But the problem in this one particular instance was that he came by, let's say it was about 11 p.m., and everyone was home. Everyone had gone to bed, but everyone was home. And by everyone, I mean my mom and her new husband. She remarried, and she has a husband who I've honestly never been fond of, just at all. It's just he's a piece of work. We'll put it that way. This is a spot in my I don't like him. He doesn't like me, and this is the one spot in my life where there's absolutely no ambiguity about anything. Because I remember the day that I met him, I was 5, and reminder, my parents divorced when I was 10, so escándalo. I remember the day that I met him, I don't know what caused it, I spat at him, which is disgusting and horrible, and one of the worst things you can do to another human being. And I think I realized that even at 5, but it was such a visceral reaction I had to this man. Because they say, trust what little kids and animals think about a person, it shows you their character. remember that, okay? I think that is the God's honest truth, really and truly. Like, I don't know what drove me to do it, but I was not feeling this dude from jump. And honestly, my feelings have not changed at all. But yeah, even though everyone was home, my dad insisted on having this letter typed up for him. It's like I said, it's like 11 p.m. and my mom and her husband they're very much early birds. Like 7 p.m., my mom's yawning, like, "Whoa, it's almost time for bed." After Wheel of Fortune, it's a wrap. And so I decided, like, my dad is very insistent. He's a lovely man, but he has like the gentle but demanding nature of a beloved king. Like you can't say no to him. It's not an option. So this night I sneak him into the house, cause I'm a teenager. Why not? Let's be a rebel. I sneak him in. I'm sitting at my computer. He's sitting at the table next to me, dictating whatever nonsense this is. And I start to hear people stirring upstairs. And I panic just a bit. I'm worried that they're gonna come down, they're gonna catch him, they're gonna hear him, and it's gonna be a big hoopla. And so I hear them rustling around, so immediately I go into panic mode. I tell my dad to go hide in the bathroom. It was like, like a kid hiding, like a girl hiding her boyfriend in a closet because her parents came home, but just not nearly as fun. The stakes felt much higher, and I didn't even get off, so it's stupid. Like, it was pointless. They come down. All of a sudden, they remember that it's garbage day the next day, and so they're getting all the garbage out of like their bedrooms, out of the kitchen, and I'm there like hyperventilating, like, oh God, just everyone go to bed. Shut up and go to bed. Get out of here. And I think the coast is finally clear, and then my mother opens the bathroom door, and there's my dad. So it's just like, oh, how did that get there? Like, yikes. Lots of screaming and yelling. I was very much in trouble and very much reminded that he's not supposed to be here. Like, how dare you? That is awful. And so, like I said, the passive aggressiveness that can last for months at a time. I'm sure we didn't speak for a couple of months after that, because that's just how we roll. But then there was one Christmas where, like, my dad, as usual, but he likes to come to the door to greet me at the very least, and then go about his business. But this one year, he stopped by with his brother and his brother's family from Maryland, and we're exchanging pleasantries at the door, and then I think I was having an out-of-body experience, because I don't know what happened in that moment. I invited everybody in. Like, the words just fell out of my face. It was shocking. It was almost just like, who the hell said that? But then, they gladly accepted my invitation. Of course they did. It was Christmas, like a festive and happy time to spend with family, merry even. It's what you do. So, there was nothing strange about them, like, happily filing into the home they'd just been invited into. But what was weird was that my mother's husband decided to just take the reins as #1 host of the year. Like, all of a sudden, he became Martha Stewart. Like, just his face lit up. Like, he's missing a tooth in the front. Like, that just gives you any idea of who this man is. He's a pot-bellied man missing a tooth in the front. So just imagine this. And he's got a very loud, obnoxious voice with a Southern accent, even though I'm pretty sure he grew up in Harlem. There's like, just everything is a little off about this guy. It's very strange. It was just like an unfamiliar, friendly pitch that I'd never encountered before. Like, he just like welcomed everyone in with open arms. Like, it was Christmas time, and I think he fancies himself a religious man, so he was like taking his "what would Jesus do" very literally in that moment. Like, he would have turned like one fish into food for everyone. Just all the loaves was about to happen. The water into wine, the whole nine. But everyone filed in and they're exchanging hellos. As far as I'm concerned, I feel like the air in the room had completely changed. Because the thing is, my mom's entire family is there. they're aware of the non-relationship between my parents. And just, like my parents, for years, hadn't spoken outside of a courtroom. And that's just me assuming. Like, I had never witnessed it, thankfully. I had no interest in, like, witnessing the world's most contentious episodes of Law and Order. Like, I was just never at court, so that was fine with me. My uncle and his family seemed, like, blissfully unaware of any tension. But then I realized as, like, they're filing in, they're mingling with my mom's family, and like sitting down, like, cause our dinner is not formal, so people are just, you get in where you fit in, you make a plate, chill, chat. My mother was firmly planted in the kitchen the whole time. She would not come out, and the thing is, like, when they walked in, I feel like she did greet my uncle and his family, cause there's no bad blood there, but she managed to completely look through my father. And I told you guys I'm nothing like her, but that is a skill I have picked up from her. I am capable of looking right through a person, because that's generally how I react to her husband, honestly. So she's in the kitchen, everybody's sitting down to eat, and then I feel like I'm sweating, my eyes are darting back and forth, like I can't focus. I feel like I'm honestly not breathing. I don't know how I wasn't blue as a Smurf. I'm sitting there just waiting for something horrible to happen. And I feel like the only person acknowledging how weird things are is my cousin. He is 8 years older than me. He has a name very similar to mine. And he's the closest I have to a brother. He's looking at me. And like, I know he's trying to catch my eye to just look at me like, hey, what the fuck? Isn't this weird? And just to laugh. Because I mean, that's just how we entertain each other and react when our family's being weird. But the stakes were way too high. And in my book, I couldn't enjoy this moment and acknowledge the weirdness with him. But the dinner went oddly okay. My dad, my uncle's family, they enjoyed some time with us. They then said goodbye because they had more stops to make to go visit some other relatives. And I'm sitting there thinking, please don't go, because the sooner you leave, the sooner my mother is going to murder me. I was just like, I don't know what to do. The night wrapped up, and I'm sitting there just waiting, being like, oh my God, I'm never gonna celebrate another Christmas. She's gonna kick me out of the house. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But surprisingly, miracle of all miracles, my mother let me live. She didn't bring it up, because what words do you say? I'm sure she was more shocked than I was. Like, I said the words, and I didn't know who the hell said the words when I invited these people in. And I'm sure she just couldn't process it. And I know, like, my one wish had been to just spend time with my whole family to make it easier. But no, I would never fucking do that ever again. The moral of this story, be careful what you wish for. Because when it comes true, it's awkward as fuck. Have a great night.